Hello and welcome. This is the boiler house for Stannington Sanatorium, which was the first purpose-built children's tuberculosis hospital in the UK. This was opened in 1907 and the boiler house and hospital served children as an NHS hospital until 1984 when it was closed. Most of the hospital buildings are now demolished, but the boiler house is still here. So let's have a look inside. I've got some old meter in there. So these were the flow meters, probably for the oil and the steam. Yeah, we've got steam pressure there, look. In here we have the boilers. Seating supplied by Edwin, Danks and Company, Oldbury Limited. So these looked like they had an auger on the top and then a conveyor going in. So there's a fan at the side, centrifugal fan, forcing air in there, and then there's like a chain going in on a conveyor that's in the top. Yeah, the bolt right going in. So these were steam boilers. The big reliefs on the top there, big steam reliefs. We saw some boilers like this running at T's Cottage, and they were coal boilers running on Welsh coal, and that supplied steam pressure for the big steam engines that were there at T's Cottage, not too far from here. So that is the boiler. So the firebox was at the front, and then all the hot gases were drawn to the back by the flue system. And seeing that one as well. So these are called a drum boiler. Most drum boilers had two furnaces in them, and yeah, these were a slightly different design that I'm not that used to, where coal was taken in on this like conveyor belt. I've not seen ones like this before. Well, there's quite a cool analog gauge there. That's probably how many revolutions the conveyor belt has done. That spider's web. So I'm at the back of both the boilers here, and then we've got this section, which I believe was something to do with the condensate return and possibly how much water goes back into the boilers, because they control the fuel at the front with the conveyor belt. So I'm guessing this is how much water went back into the boilers. This could well be what they call a hot well, where the warm condensate return comes back from the steam system. It's all condensed and it comes back into this area called a hot well. So it's effectively a big tank where it then controls the distribution of the condensate back into the boilers, so the boilers don't run out of water, because the last thing you want to do is run a boiler dry, because then it can explode. You need to keep the tube stack flooded with water, even if it is hot. So I think this was the hot well area, and there's an indication of the temperatures of the water because it's got a big expansion and contraction piece there. That also slows down water hammer. There's another relief valve there that can blow off if the pressure's too high. This is some sort of control system. We've got worm gears there in the centre of the screen, and then some sort of control device there. This is where Dave would be ideal, because he'd know what all this is called. Worm gears and auger gears, and that turned these chains. Oh, that indeed certainly turned that one. So that used to control that, but I don't know what used to turn all those, unless there was a big chain that went over the top or something. Ah, there's a control rod. This rod here. This rod rotates, and then there'll be, a worm drive underneath. Let's see if I can see that. So that rod will turn. Yeah, it turns a worm gear in here. I shine my torch in there. You see worm teeth in there. For chance viewers. Yeah, now look, there's like a worm drive. So that worm drive would rotate, and then that would rotate this wheel, pulling the chains up and down, and that controls something in there to do with the, I believe, the hot water return, the condensate return to the boilers, and then that is the demon tank, the feed tank for it. I believe there's also some more hot well equipment down there, so we'll go have a look at that next. As we take one last look at the top of the boilers. And actually look inside. So this would have been, the steam would have come off here, and they're the actual, what I call the tube stacks, that's inside the boiler. See, a lot of the pipework's been removed. I love the brickwork that surrounds these boilers. I imagine these would have been covered in lagging. I love the roof where all the nature's come through. It's slowly consuming this building. Have you been here before then, Ben?
No, just couldn't get in.
You couldn't get in last time?
No.
But this time you could?
Just peeked through the door last time.
Begs wood bricks. Some are damaged. I'm presuming it's where they've removed the boiler lagging and they've actually damaged the brickwork, pulling it out. There's some remains of the boiler lagging here. That would have completely covered the boiler casing. This support for the pipework's actually a roller as well, because as the pipework heats up, as some of you may know, the material of steel will get larger. So it'll expand as it heats up, so that gives it some room to move. And there's another support roller over there in the centre of the screen now. And these valve bodies here look like non-return valves. So the product can only go one way, but it looks like the centre of the valve has been removed. See, we're at the back at one of the sides of the boilers. Just give you a representative look there. These bricks look quite new, a lot newer than the age of the boiler, like they've been replaced. And then this section here has been like bricked up with refractory bricks. And I don't really know why, because it looks like there used to be like a flue clean out there, so they could clean out the rear of the boiler, get all the soot out. So let's have a check down here, see what's going on. The back of what I think is the hot well pipework's very rotten there. E Green and Son Limited, Wakefield, and they look like spring loaded. Like blow-offs, so they can let excess pressure out. So that full door lifts out on a spring, I think, to let excess pressure out. And then we've got a big manifold here. That's what I'd call the hot well, or part of the hot well, like a return manifold. So this would have been really warm. That's why the the water from the boiler goes. That's some sort of old switch, on-off switch. It's turned on, it's all seized up. 50 hertz, 230 volts, output 100 VA, so that's like a socket outlet. Goes off that way. Interesting. Look up. Doesn't work our way. This way, going past some more E Green and Sun Limited Wakefield. I think the blow off valves or doors. We've got a thermometer pocket there. That would have had a glass thermometer in it to give a readout of the temperature of this pipe work, which I believe would have been quite high. It goes into the back of the boilers. Some sort of plug there, maybe a drain plug for one of the jackets, possibly. Yeah, there's another drain plug there. I think they're plugs they can take out for maintenance purposes. Again, Dave's the man, he knows more than me about these sorts of things. And it just stops. Looks like there used to be a roof above, so they could have, like this is like a store area. So they used to keep like drums of oil and things like that here. I'm at the rear of the building, and this just caught my eye, and it looks like a water pump. Now there's a large flywheel there, and then there's a crank here, that's a crank. And there's the centre of the crank there, and that looks like an offset, so that spins round and that moves that up and down like a little pump. And then there's a bigger piston here that drives this, that turns that, and then that rotates that big flywheel. And then there's a water pipe inlet here, and then there's an inlet or outlet there, so it might draw in from there, pump it out there, or vice versa, so it could suck out of a well maybe and then go through this. So that looks like an air eliminator, and then through this pump here, and that pump is driven by this. That's the motive force, I believe, and that's like an auxiliary. That might be like the speed controller for it. And then that is powered by this, which is probably compressed air. They used to have similar ones to this on warships, but they ran on a vacuum and they were like a water lift pump. So this itself may have ran on a vacuum, but I don't know for sure. It looks, the way the valve setup is, like it ran on compressed air. But again, if you know otherwise, viewers, please do leave a comment, because I'm always interested to hear your opinions, to see what you think. And if you know more than me, please do leave a comment, because I like to learn. That looks like some sort of tap to drain something off. The tap body was here, and you could drain something off there. Yeah, that is a pump. Just sat in the corner of this building. That seems to have been long forgotten. They've even put a guard over it, because that's a doorway, and the pump was right here, and they've guarded the this spindle here. That used to be over. It's all bent, unfortunately, but that pump and flywheel is right here, and that entire body there is cracked. There's a pump. You can see it was once well lubricated and cared for, but now it's fallen into disrepair. So we're just going to have a look in the side room. Ben tells me there's something in there that I need to look at. Which way is it, Ben?
Right and right again. Don't go left to the toilet.
Oh right, there's more rooms. Oh wow. I didn't know these were here, so we've got more to this part of the house than I first thought. There's a mirror there. Hello. Got my hat on because it's quite sunny today. Yeah, look at them. So through here, oh, the obligatory Abex chair. Got a peely paint, bit of an office area, and then this looks like the toilets Ben told me about. Wow, yeah. Toilet, someone's took the cistern, but it's not broken, which is nice to see. Even the window, glass window isn't broken. I've got some control valves here. Dosing pot. So a dosing pot is where you add the chemicals to the system, putting like a scale inhibitor, things like that. So the last thing you want is lime scale in your boiler. I wonder if I can turn this on turbo. Yeah, turbo. So it's a bit brighter. So we've got a dosing pot there. Then we've got a flow meter here. That would have been a flow meter, so the flow of water going through would have been indicated on a dial there, and it would have had a readout. Wear goggles, which again indicates chemicals. Then we've got another pump, a weir pump. Now this is what I was talking about. This is a twin port weir pump, I believe. That was a big pump that ran on a vacuum. That was like a water supply pump. It pumped water. Wow. It's nice to see one of these again. So the piston's there in the centre of the screen. It pushed down into that plunger there and pumped water. And these were the non-return valves that I talked about earlier. So the water only went one way into this pipework. It looks like there's a water tank underneath us somewhere. Nice pipework system there. Yeah, it is made by Weir. G&G Weir Limited, Cathcart, Glasgow. When ordering spare parts, quote, that manufactured in 1932, and it's now used as a bird's nest, but it's not like seasoned for birds to nest at the minute. That's why we're doing inside explores this time of year. And that is a T&K mechanical lubricator. So when the pump operated, there was a little actuator, and then that sent oil from that into the pump. Just a little teeny bit. It's a mechanical lubricator. And that is a weir pump. And they had very similar ones to this on warships. Very similar. And that's the controller for it, for how much water it pumps. Because that could control the vacuum, so you could speed it up or slow it down. Yeah, one weir pump. Got some control valves. We've got a bulkhead light and a T12 fluorescent light there in this small engineering room. So this is the boiler house at Stannington Sanatorium, opened in 1907, closed in 1984. I'm Andy from ALW Research Team. Press subscribe to see more videos like this and lifestyle things, project motorhome, stuff like that. Check it out. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.